Alright, so what's going on, guys? It's time for the final parts in the Kingdom Saga, Part 7. Now, last time we left off with the Zhao Crisis arc. So we're going to start with the War of the Three States arc, go into the Shiyu Conflict arc, then the Battle of IQ, Zhao's Retaliation, and the Nature of Humanity arc. Now, you notice that I did not include the Hango Campaign arc. So the plan is that I'm going to release Part 7, and then I'm going to do the Hango Campaign arc, and combine it with everything else that I've released so far. So we're going to have all chapters from 1 to 795 in one comprehensive video. And I'm hoping to have that out within the next couple of days here, so look out for that. It's going to be a massive video, and yeah, it's been years in the works, but yeah, it's finally done. Thanks again for supporting the channel, thanks again for watching the videos, and yeah, let's get right into it. None of the Qin forces were able to break through Zhao's defenses. They can't divert any more forces away from the other battlefields, otherwise they risk losing Yo to the Wei army. As such, Shohei suggests that they make an alliance with the state of Wei. Meanwhile, Gohei Mei returns to the capital to talk with the Wei king, Kaibin. Now, Qin has proposed an alliance for 3 years, and is offering up the city of Juko to sweeten the deal. But here's the thing, Juko currently belongs to the Chu army. Therefore, they're going to have to work together to take it down, and then offer it to the Wei army. The two generals of Juko, Man Yu and Sento Un, are thrilled to find out that the Mobu army is going to attack them. Head out and bring back Mobu's head, says Man Yu. Karen believes that Qin is foolish in attacking Juko, but she sent in some of her own forces to get this done with as fast as possible. Moki attempts to caution his father since Wei has not agreed to their cooperative measures. Nevertheless, Mobu enters the battlefield with the force of a truck. The Juko generals seem amused that Mobu doesn't understand who they are. The two forces are evenly matched, as Man Yu displays his impressive strength. Now Sento Un is in a match with Man Yu to see who can take Mobu's head first. Reinforcements come in the form of To's army, which is about 20,000 troops. Despite this, Moki determines that taking Juko is still nigh impossible. Just then, General Kohoku and Hakurei enter the battlefield. Koyoku notices that the man who killed Rinbu, To, is here. Rokiomi's army is hit with a barrage of arrows, as Koyoku comes in. In the midst of the battle, Goho Mei and the Wei army arrives. Despite this development, Chu's army relishes the opportunity of taking down 2 armies in one fell swoop. Junei from Wei instructs Qin to perform a simple pincer attack, as Wei will adjust to their movements as need be. Qin and Wei are now in an alliance for 3 years, as Goho Mei looks to grind Chu to dust. The current formations are as follows, with the Chu standing at 110,000 soldiers, and the Qin and Wei combined armies at 120,000 soldiers. And with this, the clash officially begins. Sento Un loves the bloody carnage he finds himself in. He then engages with Rokoomi. Wei commander Rambi Haku comes in to attack Sento Un. Juko O, a Chu strategist, is excited to be going up against a strategist of Goho Mei's capability. Now Moki finds it difficult to keep up with Goho Mei's strategies, but Mobu and To are more than making up for this. Goho Mei reminds his men that they must immediately eliminate To and Mobu when their alliance is over with Qin. Now Juko's elites are giving the Qin Wei army some difficulty. Now it turns out that Man Yu, Sento Un, Genyu, and Juko O have all clashed with Chu many times. So in a sense they are true, but in another sense they're not true. They are monsters beyond imagination. Genyu takes down General Bakai of the Wei army. Sento Un takes on Rambi Haku and Rokoomi at the same time. Koyoku then comes in and slashes To across the face. And he did it with none other than the Bakuya sword. You know, just in case you were wondering. Now Goho Mei wants to switch up their tactics, since things have reached an impasse. He will thusly use Rokoomi's unit as a wall, while Rambi Haku's unit breaks through. He is redirecting the forces towards To. Another unit goes towards Mobu, and says that he's the main attack, and that he should go to Chu HQ at once. The combined forces of To and Mobu are now en route for the Chu HQ. Mobu commands his forces to go forward, as he now looks to fight Man Yu of Chu. Sento Un then makes a mad dash for Goho Mei's HQ. Now the current situation is as follows, with Goho Mei fortifying his defenses. Man Yu confronts Mobu and knocks him onto the ground with his incredible strength. "What's wrong, Mobu? I'm weaker than Kanmei," says Man Yu. Sento Un makes swift progress until he's stopped by Ryu Han, a commander of Wei. And with this, Sento Un is surrounded completely. Mobu manages to land a blow on Man Yu. Man Yu says that Mobu is carrying a heavy burden, and he'll take great pleasure in destroying it. While Tow makes swift progress, Wei deploys its siege towers on Juko. Wei pours into the city, looking to have a decided advantage. Tow narrowly dodges one of Hakurei's arrows. Rambi Haku intercepts Koyoku, allowing Tow to make it to the Chu HQ. Juko-O wants to retreat back to the castle, since Man Yu is acting strangely. Now Mobu is bringing out a different personality in Man Yu. Turns out that Man Yu is becoming the man that he once was. Man Yu warns Mobu that his burden, i.e. Shohei, might betray him. "Nonsense!" screams Mobu as he knocks Man Yu onto the ground. Juko-O sounds for a complete retreat, but Tow has already made it to the HQ. And with this, the Chu flags were replaced with the Qin flags, signifying the defeat of the Chu army. But neither Tow or Go-Ho-Mei let their guard down, as they still had to deal with the 3 Juko generals. Genyu's army, however, decides to retreat. Man Yu looks to follow suit, but he doesn't want Mobu to lose his burden in the meantime. News comes into Moki that the Wei detachment force has captured Juko. Tow captured Juko-O and asked him about Juko's secrets. Now it turns out that Man Yu and Sento-Un had lost everything. They even had their own countries once, regions called Beki and Reki. Now at the time, the king of Beki considered surrendering to Chu due to the constant strife. Unfortunately, while Man Yu was fighting off somewhere, the king of Beki decided to surrender everything to Chu. And what's worse about this fact is that the people that he protected within the city became Chu soldiers. And unbeknownst to him, he was slaughtering them. Similar situations happened to Sento-Un and Juko-O, so Shunshin gave them Juko-O as a new home. Mobu has stirred feelings within Man Yu that he has not felt in a very long time. Juko-O wants Man Yu to have something else than tragedy in his life, something better than all these petty affairs. Now Tow wants to keep the strategist alive, since he can give them a lot of information. Now Karen is none so pleased with the loss of Juko, as she plans to have a little chat with Man Yu. With Juko out of Chu's hands, Qin can now focus its efforts on capturing Canton. Tow and Go-Ho-Mei express their gratitude towards one another, but the pleasantries go out the window rather quickly, as Go-Ho-Mei says that allowing them to take Juko was a blunder on Qin's part. Tow claims they'll defeat all of Zhao in that time, but Go-Ho-Mei says that they won't defeat Riboku. The two exchange a few more biting words before parting ways. With Wei's new territory, they would thusly begin their invasion of Han, and without the threats from Wei, Qin would focus its efforts on capturing Canton within the next 3 years. With the power of Vice General Aisin, Mo Ten's army was blossoming quite well. Ohan's tactics were improving as well, as he was now overseeing the 3,000-strong Akakin unit. Unfortunately, there was one unit that was lagging behind. One unit that really wasn't making progress on the Zhao front lines, and it was none other than the Haishin unit. Now it turns out that Shosa's absence has been a huge hole in the army. In addition, Kyokai has been bedridden ever since she saved Shin on the Shukai Plains. Kyokai is attempting to recover her body through meditation, but it's going to take some time. Now while meditating, she sees an enormous dark spirit that gives her a jolt. Jiko is in charge of intelligence gathering for the Haishin unit. He reports that the soldiers are seeing Kyokai on the battlefield. Apparently, she's showing up on multiple battlefields, slaughtering everyone in a sea of blood. Bihei's unit is getting slaughtered by Zhao's soldiers. Just then, Kyokai slaughters every last Zhao soldier. But it turns out that this is not Kyokai at all. It's actually her younger sister. Kyokai wakes up to find her sister, Rei, standing outside of her tent. She tells Shin that she'll be joining the Haishin unit, and that she's stronger than any of her other men. She was thusly put in Kyokai's unit, in which she underwent a trial period. Though Kyo-Rei was brash in her techniques, the infantry unit was able to secure their first comeback victory. The next day, she draws upon her real power, and shows them a real bloodbath. Now word got out that Kyokai killed Yuren, so the Shiyu had another ritual, and Kyo-Rei won it, meaning that she's the new Shiyu. The Haishin unit is appalled by Kyo-Rei's love of brutality. Kyo-Rei then threatens Ko and calls him a weakling. Nevertheless, the Haishin unit was able to break through Koda Forest thanks to Kyo-Rei. They eventually got fed up with her unchecked violence, especially since she threatened Ko. Kyokai stops her as we find out that Kyo-Rei is here to kill her. Kyokai has no intention of fighting her. She just wants to know what happened during the ritual. Kyo-Rei then finds out that her sister used the life-searching technique. Shin is shocked to hear this, especially given the fact that Kyokai has lost a huge chunk of her life. Now Rei will give her up to 3 days to rest. Afterwards, she'll kill her along with Shin and the Haishin unit. Now it turns out that Shiki and Rei were inseparable, but with the mandates of the Shiyu ritual, Shiki lost her life. In fact, it's possible that Rei killed her. Elsewhere, we see that Rei is shedding some tears. Kyokai wants to save Rei using her own methods. After 3 days have passed, Kyokai would meet up with Rei. "So you're ready to die then, Kyokai?" Kyokai wants to know how Shiki died, but Rei attacks her with absolute rage. The two then agree to fight each other with the spirit dance. Now by taking Rei deeper into the dance, she's able to make her remember the memories from the Shiyu ritual. Now Rei and Shiki agreed to distance themselves from each other so that they could go all out during the ritual. In the chaotic bloodfest that is the Shiyu ritual, Rei and Shiki were the only two remaining. Now despite being slower than Shiki, Rei was somehow able to secure the victory. Now it turns out that Shiki did not give it her all so that Rei would live. Nevertheless, the ritual transformed Rei. She is now the Shiyu, the god of darkness that will kill everyone. Kyokai says that the only path towards true strength is out of the darkness. Now it turns out that Shiki couldn't bear the thought of killing Rei, and she wanted her to live on. "I love you so much, Rei," says Shiki. In the now, Rei breaks down, and she says she also loves Shiki. Kyokai hugs her and tells her to keep living to the fullest. Rei thusly apologizes to the Haishin unit, as Shin reminds her to listen to her superiors. Rei then reconnects Kyokai's severed chi vessels. Shin then wonders why Kyokai would reduce her lifespan to save him, and Rei says it's because she likes him. Now as it turns out, Shiyu have long lifespans, so even after using the technique, she still has the lifespan of a regular person. Now she doesn't want her feelings to go any further, as it may hinder their performance on the battlefield. And with the 12th year in Aisei's reign, Kyo-Rei would officially join the Haishin unit. At Kanyo, Sei wants to revive the 6 great generals of Qin. With the start of the 13th year in Aisei's reign, he would formally announce the revival of the 6 great generals. Moten says that the 6 great generals have the privilege to freely wage war. At Kanyo, Aisei begins the proceedings by appointing the 6 generals. First is Mobu, second is To, third, Osin, fourth, Yotanwa, fifth would be Kanki, and the last and final spot would go to no one. It would be left vacant. Now with the system in place, the generals can make quick decisions on the battlefield. With this system in place, they'll set out to destroy the 6 kingdoms. And before long, a 6th general will be born to fight alongside them. He bestows upon them golden wings, and after they have conquered the 6 states, they will return them back to Sei. Naturally, the news of this would spread throughout the 6 kingdoms. Now Karen says that this is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, the generals are more free, but on the other hand, the whole system could collapse. And with this, Qin is ready to go all out and eliminate Zhao. It's finally beginning, Kaine, the fight to unify China. Despite this, Riboku believes that this will lead to Qin's ruin. Osin, Yotanwa, and Kanki return to the Zhao front lines. With this development, Kyokai feels like something bad is about to happen. And sure enough, the double-edged sword would soon make itself all the more apparent. After waking up one morning, Kyokai decides to cut her own hair on a whim. Now everyone seems surprised as Shin seems to like this quite a bit. Now to conquer Kanton, Qin would need to take Bujo and Heiyo. Moten says that Kanki has been gathering surrounding units in a reckless rush. He also says that Ohan has had his first child with his new wife. Kanki focused his efforts on taking IQ, but his methods resulted in many casualties. Ohan's unit is then called in by Kanki. Moran introduces himself to the Ohan unit. Now Ohan doesn't like Kanki's plan of capturing IQ, since it will put his unit into the meat grinder. But an order is an order. Ohan takes up his post on the left wing, but his prospects don't look too good. Moran says that they should exercise caution, but Kanki just wants them to keep attacking. Kacho's main army of 150,000 decides to head out against Kanki's 10,000. Despite it all, Kanki wants his army to keep attacking. Wave after wave of Zhao citizens abandon their homes, as Qin invades more of their lands. Now Osin's army could head for Bujo and Heiyo, while the Kacho army was distracted, but they could risk getting ambushed from behind. Osin suggests that they use a wait-and-see approach, since Kanki's thoughts are enigmatic. Rihaku says that Kacho is to be feared on the battlefield. Moran panics in the face of fighting 150,000 Zhao soldiers, saying that they're all dead. Now Raido loves the crazy side of Kanki, but he wonders what he's fighting for. The battle between the 240,000 Zhao soldiers and the 80,000 Qin soldiers is set to begin. Shin then hears reports of the troubles with Kanki's army. Osin tells Moten that Kanki wants the Haishin unit to stay in the middle. That is, until further notification. And without further delay, the Haishin unit is requested on the battlefield. Though Kanki's plans are hard to read, Moten determines that he's after Kacho's head. Word then comes in that Oten's unit is getting decimated, and Moten tells Osen to worry more about his son. Shin finds out that the left is in shambles, and his unit is to head there immediately. Kanki receives a report that the army is getting shellacked, yet he seems unconcerned by this. Shin arrives at the left battlefield, only to see the complete defeat of the Qin at the Zhao's hands. Zhao's right-wing general, Gaku Haku, is informed about the reinforcements. The remnants of Ohan's unit attempt to protect him. Shin locates Ohan and orders his men to move out. The Zhao quickly mobilize their army to head off Shin. Kyo-Rei bursts her way through to Ohan's position, allowing their unit to escape by the skin of their teeth. Ohan is now resting, but none of his remaining troops are in any condition to fight. With Zhao holding a key advantage by being on top of the cliffs, the Haishin unit has their work cut out for them. They want to aim for a spot on the right, but Ohan wakes up and says that the Zhao set up a trap there. Now if they would attack the steepest cliff, they might have a chance since it has weak defenses. Just wait, Kanki. We'll turn this losing battle around, says Shin. Kanyo receives word that Kanki is attacking Heiau. The situation grows more and more grim, as Kanki wants to have a little chat with Moran. Ogiku reports an urgent message to Raido, as Raido decides to retreat back to the forest. Now it turns out that they captured the son of General Ryohaku, the Zhao left-wing general. Meanwhile, the Haishin unit reached the ridiculously steep slope of IQ. Now Shin will distract the main army as the infantry makes its way up. Unfortunately, a barrage of rocks come down upon the soldiers. They move over to a steeper portion, as this will protect them from the rocks. Now through sheer effort, the Haishin unit's infantry has acquired unwavering strength, and with their dedication, they finally reach the peak. And with this, Kanto begins Chin's counterattack. They remove the rock traps to allow the rest of the unit to make its way up. Shin now takes the cavalry up the right side to smash into the Zhao army. Gaku Haku of Zhao is excited about this development, as he prepares himself for Shin. Raido's army uses Ryohaku's son to lure in his dad into a disadvantaged position. Ryohaku gets stabbed multiple times, but he continues to slaughter many Qin soldiers. Despite slicing him across the neck, the Zhao general continues to fight on. Ryofu, Ryohaku's son, comes in and threatens to torture Raido for what he's done to his family. In a flashback, Akakin was to pincer the Zhao forces at the top of the cliffs. They thusly took a treacherous path to reach the desired location. Now when they saw that Ohan's unit was decimated, they thought about going back. That was until they saw the Haishin unit arrive on the scene. Now their surprise attack is pretty effective, but they get surrounded quickly and have to go back into the forest. That being said, with their army in the forest, they're still serving as a threat, which means that Shin can focus on making good progress. They head for the enemy's HQ as Gaku Haku stirs up some trouble. Rei then gets knocked off of a cliff with some other men from the Haishin unit. Shin then comes face to face with Gaku Haku, as the Zhao general looks forward to crushing him. Meanwhile, Raido and his men are brought before General Kocho. Kocho gives the order to remove Raido's finger from his hand. Afterwards, he aims to remove their arms as well. After much torture, Raido's unit is completely brutalized. Kocho then asks what Kanki is plotting, yet the Qin general refuses to answer. In fact, he merely smiles in Kocho's face, and says he'll say nothing of Kanki's plans. He then begins to understand Kanki a little more, as he wishes he could talk to him one more time. Once news of Raido's capture spread, the remnants of his army fell apart. What's worse, Ryofu had an unquenchable thirst for taking their lives. Meanwhile, Kocho was obliterating Kokuo's army. Now this is the current situation of Kanki's army, with losses being seen on almost every front. Kocho's army might be in trouble if Osen comes, but he does not believe that will happen. Ohan's battered soldiers look to re-enter the fray. Shin battles with Gaku Haku, as Zhao's rear guard gears up to join the front lines. In the midst of the fight, Shin summons Bihei, and after getting knocked down, Shin tells Bihei to hold on to Oki's glaive for him. He now plans to use Sei's sword for the fight with Gaku Haku. Akakin looks to stall the rear army while Shin takes on Gaku Haku. Gaku Haku brings out his Moonblade, and he thusly showcases his incredible speed. Shin remembers his battles with Heiau as a kid. As he begins to move more freely, Zhao's cavalry intervenes, creating a chaotic situation. Now Gaku Haku derives pleasure from choking the life out of people who enjoy war. Shin says he's never fought someone as apathetic as him. Gaku Haku kicks him in the chest, and reminds him that he's a small part of the universe. Gaku Haku whacks Shin across the face, knocking him onto the ground. It seems like he has no weaknesses. But then Shin is hit with a burst of inspiration. He stops Gakuhaku's movement, calls for his glaive, and proceeds to slice his way through the Zhao general's sword and body. The Zhao rear forces make their move, as Kyokai's forces look to head them off. Meanwhile, Akakin's forces conduct a surprise attack on Gakuhaku's HQ. And with this, the Haishin unit captures IQ. As though they took IQ in a day, the Ohan unit wore them down first. And they obviously passed along a very valuable piece of information. Ten now wants to capitalize on this opportunity to attack Kacho's flank. Kacho will redirect his forces to head off the Haishin unit. But as it turns out, this would be a fatal mistake. Kanki's army is running for their lives, as it appears to be a rout. The Ryohaki army spreads out to find Kanki. As they send a detachment to Kokuo, Osen then determines that Kanki is employing a tactic used by Sun Bin. Now in the past, a battle between Chi and Wei took place. And in this battle, Chi turned around and fled. The pursuing Wei army determined that the Chi forces were dying off, and they made this assumption based on the camping supplies. Unfortunately, they misjudged the situation and got overwhelmed by Chi's numbers. And sure enough, reports start pouring in that Kanki's forces are overwhelming the disorganized Zhao army. And with that, Kanki's in front of Zhao's HQ. General Kacho finally discerns Kanki's strategy, but at this point in the battle, it's far too late. Now the Kanki army used their art of keeping hidden to slip past their enemies. Kacho then determines that he played right into Kanki's plans from the beginning. The Zhao general looks to escape, but Kanki predicts his move once more and heads him off. The Supreme Commanders face off. Now it was a battle between Kacho's 100 cavalry to Kanki's 200. Kanki stops one of the soldiers and proceeds to stab him in the chest. Realizing that his fate is sealed, the Zhao general looks to take his own life. But it's a feint so that he can attack Kanki's forces. He then really cuts his own neck, and proceeds to take a few more soldiers on his way out. His rampage eventually comes to an end as he finally falls in battle. The news of Kacho's death would light a fire in the belly of Kanki's army. Demoralized by this, the Zhao army would wave the white flag. Now with the control of information, the Kanki army ended up capturing tens of thousands of Zhao prisoners. Shin's army was surprised to hear of Kanki's victory. The commanders for Kanki's army then wonder where Raido is, as the general points towards a box. And inside said box, they find the dismembered corpse of Raido. Despite getting cut up while still alive, he never said a word. Kanki then wonders how many prisoners they have. Now with their victory, Shin can take Bujo and Heio next, and then it's on to Canton. Shin's unit would pursue the remaining Zhao soldiers under Kanki's orders. With them busy, a mass beheading would take place. It's the 13th year of Aisei's reign. General Kacho is dead, and 100,000 Zhao soldiers were beheaded. News of this reaches Kanyo, and obviously, Aisei is quite grief-stricken. Rishi reminds Aisei that making Kanki a great general was dangerous, since he's easily the most evil of the lot. Shin wants to kick Kanki's ass for what he did, but Ten reminds him that Kanki will face justice for what he's done. And 9 days later, the king's army would arrive at the front lines. Aisei's army confronts Kanki's, but Kanki refuses to stand up in the king's presence. Aisei demands to know why he massacred the prisoners, but Kanki doesn't have a reason. Kanki continues to toy with the king, so Aisei orders one of his soldiers to carry out the beheading. Moran intervenes and says that Kacho's army could have still rallied against them, so they had no choice in the matter. Kanki reminds Aisei that he started this invasion, therefore he has the most amount of blood on his hands. Aisei wants to avoid another incident like the one with Hakuki, and as such, he wants to unite the 7 states as one. Kanki says that there is already inborn hatred, and that he expects too much out of humans. Now, unlike Kanki, Aisei has hope for people, and does not resort to hopelessness. Now, Aisei decides to pardon Kanki, since his accomplishment was immeasurably important. Sei gives him a fierce warning, as he laments over the massacre that happened under his watch. Shin then comes upon the king as they decide to have a little chat. Now, Aisei is worried about the aftermath of this incident, and how it might rally the Zhao soldiers. Now, even though Aisei sought refuge in Zhao when he was young, he is now standing at the throat of claiming it for himself. Naki talks with Kanki's officers, as he finds out that the Saki clan has been with Kanki the longest. Elsewhere, we see Kanki in bed with a woman from the Saki clan. Now, Sei left 30,000 soldiers on the front lines as he went back to the capital. Now, Zhao has to replace the commander-in-chief since Kacho is no longer around. A representative of Zhao convinces Renpa to return to Zhao. Kakukai, however, convinces the other officials that Renpa will kill them, since Renpa hated King Tojo. He thusly fabricated a story to forbid Renpa from returning to Zhao. And with this option gone, they had no other choice but to reinstate Riboku as the commander-in-chief. Riboku formulates a defensive measure, deciding to go north towards Gi'an. He then arrives in snow-covered lands, pleased with the layout. Osun's army then took on Bujo, as Kanki's worked on Heiau. Osun took a small group of soldiers forward to discover a large wall perched on a cliff, and the wall stretched over 125 kilometers, and provided a great defense for Canton. Now Osun wants to head towards Gi'an to prevent a possible escape for the Zhao king. Once they take the north, Canton will be ripe for the picking. Shohei believes that Osun's plan is optimal for taking Zhao. Elsewhere, Qin captures the city of Bujo, and 10 days after that, Kanki conquered Heiau, and subsequently left the prisoners for the Haishin unit to deal with. Qin would now send Osun and Kanki to Atsuyo, and after that, they would be working their way towards Gi'an, the desired location. Kaine has a dream in which he has a family with Riboku. Riboku then sends Kansaro and Jiaga to Romo to prepare for Qin's upcoming invasion. Osun and Kanki's armies make their way towards Atsuo. Sen, who is now going by Yuboku, intervenes on Riboku's strategy meeting and proceeds to lick Kaine's hand. Now Yuboku will not interfere with military affairs, as he wants Riboku to save Canton so that he can experience the highest pleasure. Now here's the current situation at Atsuyo, with Osun's army doing the bulk of the work. Now Zhao's soldiers were sacrificing themselves to slow down the Qin armies, and none other than Shunsuju was tasked with watching over Atsuyo. The remnants of Kocho's army storm out of the castle, and they make a beeline for General Denrimi, but Osun cuts this off straight away. Ryofu and Kohaku break their way out of the encirclement to make for the real target, General Kanki. "Sorry, but this is as far as you go," says Shin. Ryofu attempts to force his way through, as Shin blocks his path. Kohaku implores his fellow general to take Kanki's head. Kokuo unleashes a barrage of arrows on Ryofu's detachment. Shin comes in as Kanki's unit implores him to capture Ryofu alive. Shin does no such thing, as he finishes off the Zhao general in one slice. He then admonishes the Kanki army, and says he'll never forgive them. Shin's unit finishes off the Zhao soldiers, as Kanki says that he's bored without Raido. With Atsuyo's downfall, Shunsuju escapes through an underground tunnel. Now unfortunately, capturing Atsuyo took a toll, as Osun's army suffered 3 times more casualties than they expected. Kohaku then meets up with Shunsuju, as they intend to head towards Riboku. With Osun's army in need of rest, Kanki's army, along with Moten and Shin's armies, will need to move forward. Now there are 200,000 Qin soldiers in Taigen, and they're intended to provide support along the way. And with this departure from Atsuyo, the invasion of the north begins. Meanwhile, General Sohako was in charge of the 200,000-man Qin army. The army is made up of conscripted soldiers, so Kansaro and Jiaga look to take advantage of their inexperience. Now Kansaro's soldiers have been preparing for the surprise attack for a half a year, and that's because Riboku predicted that this day would come. Jian will be Qin's undoing, as the Zhao North is a whole nother animal. And with this, Kansaro kills General Sohako. And without the proper leadership, the Qin army would become disorganized and started to withdraw in droves. So with a starting force of 200,000 soldiers, they were down to only 50,000. And that's all that made it to Kanki's army. The various generals and commanders still want to proceed forward towards Gi'an with their total force of 140,000. Shin, however, feels as though something is off. Kanki also senses that something is off. But regardless, he will break through whatever they prepared for him. And what's more, he'll win. Osun is a bit shocked by Kanki's plan, so he'll monitor the situation before acting. One of the mountain tribesmen senses a sinister omen. They move forward and are now 2 days out from Gi'an. Yet despite this, they haven't encountered any resistance. Ten recommends that they capture Sekirei before taking Gi'an. Heki's unit is charged with taking Sekirei as the Haishin unit rests up for the battle with Gi'an. Heki begins his siege as Kyo-Rei senses that something is off. The gates open up as 3 elderly men wave the white flag. Now it turns out that everyone fled the castle. Kanki's men were quick to rob every valuable within sight. Shin and Moten's units were unable to find any hidden traps within the castle. Now Shohei suspects that Zhao has collected all their remaining strength at Gi'an. With the Qin in the north, Yan might be next on the docket. Yet Ordo believes that Riboku won't surrender Gi'an or Hango so easily. Riboku awakens in the city of Gi'an, as things are about to heat up. Meanwhile, the joint army of 140,000 sets forth for a grueling war at Gi'an. Riboku tells the people that the royal family is unimportant, as they should focus on protecting their homes and their land. We of the Zhao North will be unstoppable. Zhao confronts the joint army outside the castle. What's more, they surround him from the left, the right, and the center. It is thusly Zhao's 310,000 men versus Qin's 140,000. Zhao has always fought the Xiongnu of the north, and they always had Riboku as the commander in the north in Ganmon. The Zhao released their battle cry as Shun Suju says that Riboku will become king. Now Qin has been hoodwinked by Riboku's masterful plan. In fact, Romo purposefully allowed 50,000 soldiers to join up with Kanki's army, and they did this because they wanted them to have enough confidence to move forward towards Gion. And because of this, Riboku's foresight is truly terrifying. Riboku commands his army to begin the onslaught. And with this setup, Moten realizes that they need to break through to have any chance. We've been completely outplayed. Can we really escape this? Wonders Ten. Heki nearly loses an eye before the Nanjara clan comes to his aid. Now Qin's army is a chaotic mess, as Ten wonders how they'll turn the tables in this dire situation. Riboku's army is literally squeezing the life out of Kanki's army. Despite it all, Kanki is not worried in the least. Shin looks to start a fire by breaking formation and moving somewhere else. Riboku senses that something is going on with the Haishin unit, but ultimately it will be inconsequential. Shin's unit moves to Heki's location, but instead of helping him, they just run right past. While this bizarre behavior goes on, Kanki can only chuckle to himself. The Haishin unit then arrives at Moten's location, and with the left wing doubling their strength, they can start a fire that will only grow. Now it feels like Riboku is fighting Du Kyo, as the Zhao general attacks Kanki from the flank. Kyokai gives instructions to Aizen for how they'll do battle in this precarious situation. General Fuan is tasked with crushing the army on the right flank. General Gakusho and Jio Karyu look to take on the combined Shin and Moten army. Under Moten's command, they'll form a drill formation to break out of Riboku's cage. Gakusho's army mimics this as they both charge into each other at full force. Gakurai starts feeling himself, but Jio Karyu of Zhao gives him a dose of reality. Now Gakurai was like a father figure to Garo. As Shin tries to avenge his fallen commander, Garo comes to help out, but Jio Karyu has ample support. Kyorei wants to help out Shin, but Kyokai reminds them that they need to break out of this wedge before they can do anything else. Gakusho then strikes Moten off of his horse. A disastrous blow. Moten has sustained a large gash across his chest. Before Zhao can finish him off, Aizen arrives to slice them to pieces. Aizen then picks up Moten and hands him off to another soldier. Aizen now looks to take on Gakusho himself. Kyokai's unit continues charging forward. Now because they're doing this with reckless abandon, she might be pushing herself too hard. But with her efforts, they're able to break through. Gakusho reminds his men that Shin and Moten are still trapped within the cage. An all-out brawl breaks out. Jin and Tan remember Gakurai as they start firing arrows like madmen. This distraction allows Shin to knock Jio Karyu off of his horse. Shin then attempts to plow his way through, but ends up stopping on a dime. To break through a thick wall, it's better to burrow under it, says Shin. In an instant, Kyokai cuts off the head of Lieutenant Goza Ko. Shin catches her as she's now out of breath. With the Haishin unit carving a path out, Aizen commands his men to go out as well. Gakusho and Fuan look to prevent this from happening, but Riko-sen and Rei defeat Fuan as Shin and Aisei incapacitate Gakusho. Despite suffering heavy losses, Shin and Moten's armies escape the cage. You've grown into an opponent to match me, Ri-Shin, general of the Haishin unit, says Riboku. Now Kanki remains trapped within the cage, which at the end of the day is still Riboku's main target. Heki remains steadfast in staying with Kanki's army to hold the front. Riboku states that Kanki relies on tricks to win battles, and he is completely unaware of standard strategies. Stuck in the middle of the plains without any tricks up his sleeves, Kanki is completely helpless against the Zhao army. Now to everyone's surprise, Kanki mobilizes his army into a strange windmill formation, and while everyone was befuddled, only Kanki and Riboku could understand this bizarre formation. I understand. That's simply a bluff, says Riboku. Riboku determines the formation's weakness fairly easily, and instructs his troops to attack the legs. In response to this, Kanki sends out a detachment with Kokuo leading the charge. He recalls her back and has Ringyoku go out next. And this continues on, wasting everyone's time. But that's the point. With the arrival of darkness, the bandit army will hold a key advantage. Kanki's corps heads to the right to break out of Riboku's cage. Riboku then orders all his troops to descend upon the Kanki army. The Zeno clan serves as the vanguard to punch a hole through the Zhao forces. Despite getting through, the Zeno clan is battered to all hell, and Kanki has limited forces to protect himself. Zhao will relentlessly pursue him throughout the night. The Haishin unit is pinned in the forest, with no clear way to escape the Zhao encirclement. Hansen from the Kanki army meets up with the Haishin group, and says that they could still take Gion Castle. Now the reason that this can work is that the Zhao army is spread pretty thin right now. They decide to pursue this plan, as the Saki clan then makes their presence known. They want to accompany the Haishin unit to Gion Castle. Now Naki will only allow this if they reveal more information about Kanki. So the Saki leader takes off her mask and agrees to do so. The Saki clan took in Kanki when he was only a 13-year-old boy. Now after he joined, he began to change. But for now, that's all that the woman will say on the matter. They'll have to capture Gion Castle to hear the rest. Despite not finding Kanki, the Zhao army is confident that it's only a matter of time before they do so. Kanki's army enters a river, as the general is still confident that he'll win this battle against Riboku. We then see the Haishin unit in a weirdly designed siege tower. They arrive at the castle and release themselves to the utter surprise of the Zhao army. Gion sends up a smoke signal, which means the Haishin unit will need to move quickly before reinforcements come. Shin then assembles the Haishin unit's monster strength trio to get this job done quickly. Now, due to them being outnumbered, the Haishin unit is experiencing much resistance. Many of their men are injured, but they accomplish their goal of opening the gates of Gion. They thusly storm in and take the castle for themselves. All three members of the Monster Strength trio are gravely injured. Now, given the Saki clan's knowledge of the human body, they have the ability to heal these three soldiers. Moten reminds his men that if Kanki can make it to Gion or Sekirei, he will revive the morale of the army. Despite Shin's misgivings about the Saki clan, he thanks them for saving his men with their techniques. Now, as per their agreement, the Saki clan leader will now tell them more about Kanki. Now, Kanki was saved by a village of children, and all these children were abused by people of power. They thusly lived by themselves, and made ends meet by stealing from others. One of the kids even had his face burned by a local lord. Members of the Roho clan start killing several of the children, and look to steal their food. They even want to take the leader of the Saki clan, Shio, and use her for their own purposes. Shio realizes that they can't fight back, so she reluctantly agrees. Now, Kanki thinks otherwise, so he decides to stab one of the Roho bandits in the dick. He takes out the others, and it seems like he's actually enjoying himself while doing this. Shio is pissed off by Kanki's actions, since the Roho clan will come in full force to eliminate the village right now. But Kanki decided to strike first. He mixed something into the Roho clan's booze so that they would all fall into a deep sleep. And with this opportunity, they could murder the clan leaders. Now, killers would constantly chase them down after this. So Kanki decided to make an example of the pursuers by carving up their bodies. And he did this in the most gruesome way possible. And in this way, the pursuers would think twice before chasing them again. And from that day onward, that was the birth of the Saki clan. Now, to avenge the kid who had his face burned, Kanki found the person that was responsible for doing this and repaid the kindness by burning his face. Kanki then reveals his philosophy, that they should be directing their rage at the people in the middle, those who pretend like these atrocities have nothing to do with them. Because the people in the middle refuse to do nothing, the world's structure remains unchanged, a structure in which the strong take advantage of the weak. In effect, Kanki loathes almost everyone in the entire world. The story ends here though, as Kanki is at the doorstep of Gion Castle. A report comes into Zhao HQ that Gion Castle has been taken by the Qin army. And with this, Riboku suspects that Kanki is currently at Gion Castle. Now, if Sekirei still remains within Qin's hands, their potential to hold out in Gion Castle only goes up. In a flashback, we see Heki's battered army arriving at Sekirei Castle. The men are rather dejected, but Heki fires them up and says they'll defend Sekirei with their lives. Just then, however, numerous men kneel over and start vomiting profusely, and it seems to be the cause of some poisoning, as the men start dying in droves. Turns out that the water was poisoned by the old men in Sekirei, and this was all set in motion last year when they heard about the beheadings with Kanki. Now the Zhao will take the remaining men who survived this to detention camps, to work until they die. With Sekirei out of the picture, Riboku orders all his remaining forces to converge upon Kanki. A signal comes in that Sekirei has fallen to Zhao hands. At Kanyo, Shohei admits that they were lured into a trap because he underestimated Riboku. Despite the current predicament, Osen is unable to make a move. as they might be lured into yet another trap by Riboku. After the horrific events at Kokuyo, Riboku determined that Kanki could not be left alive for very long, and with the bulk of their army converging on Gion, his end is drawing near. Based on the current situation, Kanki determines that Osen is not coming to their rescue. In a flashback, we learn that the detached, uncaring Kanki has a special place in his heart for Shio. Not too long afterwards, Riboku begins his assault on Gion. Zhao reaches the top of Gion's walls, only to find out that the Kanki army is nowhere to be found. Now, though going west makes the most sense, Riboku determines that he must have gone east towards Hika. And as it just so happens, the citizens of Sekirei and Gion are all there, which means that Kanki's going to use the population of 100,000 civilians as hostages, or possibly he'll make an example out of all of them. And as it just so happens, the Zhao find a nice little love letter from Kanki. I will carve the tragedy of Hika into history. It's now a race against time to stop Kanki from butchering everyone in Hika. Around the same time, Kanki laid his eyes upon the city of Hika. No matter how terrible of an end this is for them, it's the best they could have hoped for. If you just do as I say, everything will turn out just fine, says Kanki. The Zhao soldiers then notice a roaring blaze coming from the direction of Hika. When they arrive, they notice that it's just the woods that are on fire and not the castle. Even if Zhao eradicates the Qin army, Kanki's mass slaughtering will delay the prospects of rebuilding the north. Just then, Kanki's army surprises everyone and attacks Riboku from the flank. Riboku takes a moment to reflect upon the situation, and how perfectly he fell for Kanki's ploy. The Zeno clan starts smashing through as it looks like Riboku's in for a rough battle. I won't let you lay a single finger on Lord Riboku, screams Kaine. Now Qin's army waited in 3 different locations, and Riboku just happened to take the path that Kanki was waiting in. Shin and Moten's armies attempt to cut off any armies that may provide support to Riboku. Shuma attempts to end Kaine, but Riboku comes to her aid. Riboku then thrusts his sword through Shuma's eye. Kokuo fires an arrow at Riboku, but Kaine uses her body to shield him. He looks to help her, yet Ringoku is there to do battle. Eventually though, Riboku gets to her side and hands her off to one of her men. Ringyoku gives him a heavy whack with his sword, knocking him onto the ground. Fute and Bufuji come in to engage with Ringoku. Despite having limited numbers, the Kanki army keeps fighting on with everything they've got. Shin notices the Saki clan all by themselves, so he instructs Naki to go reinforce them. Moten's army goes up against Shun Suju, as the Qin general hopes for Kanki to hurry up and finish off Riboku. And speaking of the devil, he's within striking distance of the Zhao commander-in-chief. His blade finally arrives. Riboku strikes with his sword, but Kanki was able to slice off the tip. Not only that, he produced a large gash in Riboku's head. Kohaku's unit looks to help out Lord Riboku, but Moten sends out Aisei to stop them in their tracks. The Haishin unit hears shouting from Riboku's location, but they can't tell who won. Now despite the massive gash across his face, Riboku maintains his composure and looks to fight on. Fute! Target Kanki! Yells Riboku. Fute rushes into battle and engages with Ringoku. Kokuo gets slashed across the clavicle, but she persists on. The Zhao soldiers are sacrificing their own lives to make sure that Lord Riboku can be protected. You guys are insane. Is your life really precious enough for all of this, Riboku? Says Kanki. Your citizens in your kingdom are nothing but deficient, imperfect piles of shit. Because they're imperfect, they continue to fight, and Riboku says that this will be Kanki's end. The rest of Kanki's soldiers want to go by his side, but Moran says there's no need, as those were the boss's orders. The soldiers of Gammon have the greatest glory of protecting Lord Riboku. Kanki, push through them! We'll kill you all! Screams Kokuo. Unfortunately for the Kanki army, reinforcements for Zhao come in the form of Kohaku's army. Kokuo then gets impaled in her abdomen. Jioka puts the finishing touches on the exhausted Zeno. Shin then receives a shocking report that Kanki's surprise attack failed. Ogiko then relays an urgent message to Shin from Kanki. You trash bastard. That's all. I mean, goddamn, if he was any more of a Chad, it would be illegal. Now, there is a little bit more to this message, and it states that Shin should escape with Ogiko, Moran, and the Saki clan. Return this to your king who sits on a throne of blood. Kanki is effectively serving as the bait for Shin and Moten, so that they can escape and fight another day. The Haishin unit thusly goes into a full retreat. Everyone except for Naki, who decides to be with his boss in his final moments. And he's doing this because Kanki's army is like family to him. Shin thanks Naki for his service, but he's got no time to get sentimental, as they need to make their retreat. Though Kokuo was was never Kanki's woman, she was family to him. Before Zhao slaughters Qin, Riboku wants to have a few words with Kanki. Now Riboku claims that Kanki has a heart that is no larger than a flea. Do you understand the feelings of the oppressed? Responds Kanki. Ayo, Shio's younger sister, reveals that her sister was repeatedly raped and had her arms and legs cut off. And because Kanki loved her, he was absolutely heartbroken. He thusly spent years growing his clan so that he could eventually behead everyone that was responsible for this incident. Hence he received the name Kanki the Beheader. He lost his light in the form of Shio, and he's thusly trapped in a pit of rage. Riboku then witnesses this white-hot burning rage for himself. Now at some point, each member of the Kanki army became irreplaceable. Each member of the Kanki army became irreplaceable family to Kanki. Because Kanki turned his hollow rage into violence, Riboku believes that he is the worst villain. Riboku urges him to toss aside his weapons and surrender, but Kanki says that he's a chump and that he can't change anything. You all have set your sights too far outside yourselves. The order to exterminate them will be given soon, so Kanki cheers up his troops with his classic line, "Don't worry everybody, everything will turn out just fine." Riboku gives the order, as Kanki calls out for Zeno. Now miraculously, Zeno is still alive, and he uses the last of his strength to crush Gyokka's face. Kanki is dead set on finishing off Riboku, as Kokuo draws her last breath and collapses onto the ground. "Go on ahead, Kokuo, I'll be right behind you with Riboku's head." Naki makes it back to Kanki as he wonders what the boss is fighting for. He then gets impaled from behind. Turns out Kanki always wanted to take them back home where they grew up, but not until he got his proper revenge. Kanki accepted every member of the Saki clan no matter what physical deformity they had, which is why they all became family. Kanki then slices Kohaku's head in half, yet it doesn't take long before he's the only one left alive and fighting on. In the afterlife, Shio and the other various members of the Kanki army prepare themselves to go to their sanctuary. In the third year of King Yuboku's reign, Qin attacked Sekirei and Gion. Riboku led an army, fought them at Hika, and repelled them. Riboku repeatedly defeated and routed the Qin army, killing Qin General Kanki. This rout was devised through 6 months of careful preparations, and now Kanki's dead. We may have just fought the strongest of Qin's 6 great generals without realizing it. Riboku reminds the army that they still need to capture Shin and Moten for complete victory. At nighttime, Shin reflects on his time and conversations with Kanki. Just then, Kyokai and Rei return to the Haishin unit. After a night of hard riding, Shin reaches out and pulls Kyokai into his body, glad that she made it back safely. Let's return to Qin together. Word then comes into Kanyo that General Kanki was slain in battle by Riboku. Everyone is thunderstruck by this news, but none so more than Shohei, who blames himself. Kanton is thrilled to hear about Riboku's victory. Everyone except for Kakukai. While scoping out their surroundings, the Haishin unit notices So-O of the Osen army fighting the Zhao. The Haishin unit meets up with him, but Shin is none so happy about the events that led up to this. Nevertheless, nothing could have changed the outcome against Riboku's foolproof scheme. Shin and Moten's armies would reach Atsuo, along with the survivors from Kanki's army. On their way back to Qin, Moran thinks the remnants of Kanki's army should become a band of mercenaries. In a flashback, Kanki's group of bandits captured Mogo. Now the Qin general saw great potential in the boy, and eventually convinced him to be one of his vice-generals. Now that Kanki is gone, the Saki clan is returning to their sanctuary. Moran then wonders why Shin is the most upset about Kanki's death. Shin meets up with Issei, as we find out that the various states are thrilled that Kanki is gone. Chu even took advantage of the situation to invade southern Qin, and seize the imperial city of Kaifu. Shin then returns Kanki's golden wing to Sei, and says he's not good enough yet to touch it. Shin is now tasked with accompanying To to the capital of Han. Now they want to invite the genius of legalism, Kanpishi, to Qin. In addition, they want to gain valuable intel on Han's fortifications, to prepare themselves for future attacks. In a flashback, we find out that Kanpishi is a member of the royal family of Han. Now while To is quite exposed in the state of Han, it's in Han's best interest not to kill him. Han is the weakest military in the 7 kingdoms, and doing such a thing would receive the full extent of Qin's wrath. At long last, Shin and To reach the capital city of Han, Shinte. "Master Kanpi will not be going to Qin. Please return," says an unknown girl. Rakue of the Han army apologizes for her rudeness, and invites them into the main palace. Now it turns out that this girl is Princess Nei, and she's an apprentice of Kanpi. A stuttering Han soldier then asks Shin if humans are born good or evil. We then find out that this is none other than Campeche, and he asks Shin what the true nature of humans is. Shin begins to answer the question as they arrive at the royal court. "Alright, it's finally time for me to take the stage," says Kyoki. Chin walks inside and meets the 22nd king of Han, Oan. Oan offers an alliance of 10 or 20 years with Chin, but Kyoki says that this would be complicated, as they've had their difficulties with each other in the past. If Han were to deny Campeche's services, then Chin would be slighted, and this would undoubtedly result in a war between the two. Campeche is then summoned to give his thoughts on the matter. Now Campeche wants to know Shin's answer to his question, and it seems like this could be the deciding factor on whether or not he goes to Chin with them. Kyoki takes offense to Campeche's language, but Campeche doubles down and says that Chin is lower than dog shit. Though Chin is going around invading other kingdoms, Shin says it's necessary to put an end to these 500 years of war. Campeche says that laws are based on the notion that people are inherently bad, but if King Aisei believes that people are inherently good, then his kingdom based on law is paradoxical. Being a close friend of Aisei, Shin has a window into his thought process. But that being said, Shin doesn't really understand what evil is. In a place like the battlefield, good and evil are pretty irrelevant. Shin then states that a man's true nature is that of fire. As expected, this catches everyone off guard. For Shin, depending on the circumstance, good and evil are interchangeable. All there is the fire of life, and the fire of will. Kinda sounds very similar to Nietzsche's will to power. Everyone unleashes their fires on the battlefield, and those fires can be inherited by the next person. In essence, the fires of will get woven into one. Though it's a beautiful answer, it means that Shin believes in inherent goodness, which means he's averting his eyes from the humanities of true nature. Shin reminds Campeche that foolishness and evilness are not the same thing. He also states that the Han legalist has spent his whole life thinking about people, which means that more than anyone else, he believes in the inherent goodness of people. Campeche is thoroughly amused by Shin's argument, and he's gained a useful insight into the King of Qin. So with that being said, he'll begin his preparations for the state of Qin. The delegation quickly departs for Qin with Campeche in tow. Princess Nate begs for them not to press Campeche too hard, as if anything happens to him, she'll never forgive them. Now Campeche stood opposed to Confucianism, so he wasn't well liked within the Han court. Now Princess Nate doesn't like Shin so much, since he'll bring ruin upon the people of Han. Toad then implores Rakue to keep Princess Nate safe, as she's the only fervent person here. Now Riboku is named Buan-kun, due to his achievement of toppling the Kanki army, and the Buan-kun is the title given to the Lord of Buan. Riboku defeated Kanki because of a dangerous trap, and Oki was done in with a lockdown of information in the north. So in this regard, Riboku is a monster when it comes to battles of information. Now it was expected upon Campeche's arrival that he would be given a seat within the inner court, but that did not happen right away. Turns out Campeche is not satisfied with Sei's philosophy for ruling China. Rishi speculates that they may be incompatible, so he wonders what Campeche is attempting to accomplish here. Yoka, an informant for Rishi, receives a strange look from Campeche. Yoka panics, thinking that Campeche noticed his true intentions. While speaking with Rishi, Yoka considers eliminating Campeche through murder, but it won't be so easy given his prestige. Given that Yoka has infiltrated deep into the core of Zhao, Rishi wonders why he didn't pick up on Riboku's machinations. Now to take attention off of himself, Yoka suggests that Campeche is conducting espionage. That night, Qin soldiers surrounded Campeche's residence and thoroughly investigated the interior. Rishi confronts Campeche about several spies being identified within his group. Campeche knows this was all Yoka's doing, and that he's a dangerous man. Yoka has long since stopped being one of your subordinates. Yoka's current master is Riboku. They studied together under Junshi and Chu, these twin pillars of wisdom. In a flashback, Campeche received perfect marks on his legal entrance exam. Campeche says that Yoka knew of Riboku's trap, which means he's a double agent for Zhao. Yoka actually has a master in 4 different states, which means he's actually a quadruple agent. Now Rishi hated Campeche growing up, since no matter how hard he studied, he could never overtake him. Now as it turns out, Campeche studied so hard that it felt like he was going to die. And he did all this because he couldn't bear the thought of losing to Rishi. Campeche implores Rishi to carve his name into history, and to unite the lands through the strength of legalism. Later on, a report comes into Aisei and Rishi that Campeche is dead. Upon seeing Campeche's corpse, Rishi screams out Yoka's name. Rishi confronts Yoka on the matter, but Yoka implores the legalist to forget what really happened and to conclude that Campeche committed suicide. And the reason that he's saying this is that the intelligence network is bound together through him, which means that if he dies, it will all fall apart. Now, for the sake of crushing the other kingdoms, Yoka begs to return to Riboku's side to conduct his work. Now, because Campeche died at Rishi's estate, a rumor begins to spread that Rishi poisoned him. Now, Chin has invested considerable resources into Yoka's work, so Rishi's gonna let him continue infiltrating Zhao. However, he's gonna be watching him like a hawk. Rishi can't stop thinking about Campeche's words, especially the part about a man's true nature, i.e. the fire of will. He now wants to inherit Campeche's fire of will. A messenger conveyed that Chin felt great responsibility for Campeche's death. But understandably, Han was quite heartbroken about this. Despite his untimely passing, Campeche's work, the Han Fezi, greatly influenced laws written during the Qin and Han dynasties. Meanwhile, Shin, Kyokai, and Rei go to Shin's home of Johto. Now, the reason that they are here is because Bihei is finally getting married, and the one overseeing the commencement is none other than Shin. Upon seeing Kyokai in a dress, Shin's face becomes beet red. Now, the villagers are impressed with Shin's accomplishments, and say that he's turned into a fine man. Now, the night that Hyo died, Assassin stabbed Yu's left leg. And he always wanted to fight alongside Shin, but that's impossible now due to his lifelong damage. Shin thanks Yu for everything that he did in the past, as the two make up for lost time. The next morning, Shin takes Kyokai to the shack that him and Hyo grew up in. Though the Shiyu village doesn't allow any men, Shin would like to eventually see Kyokai's place of birth. Now, once the war for unifying China is over, Shin wants to marry Kyokai. Kyokai fears that this will make Shin fear death, which will cause him to be weaker, but Shin believes this vow will only make him stronger. Nevertheless, Kyokai will need to think this matter over before she gives him a response. At the beginning of the 15th year of Aisei's reign, Qin would mobilize their army for Hango. Of course, Riboku would be their enemy, but additionally, they would be facing Shibasho's main army from Seika. Thus begins the Battle of Hango. According to the record of the Grand Historian, more Qin soldiers lost their lives in this battle than any other during the Warring States period.